Let's move on now to the fourth main topic that you guys have sent in today. And the fourth main topic today comes to us from Terrence Washington, who writes, "Hey, John. So, there is this rumor going around about Sony wanting Venom in whatever the MCU's version of Spider-Man 3 will be. I know, just another rumor, but this one comes from some mystery Twitter account that accurately gave out huge Avengers details all the way back in December of 2018. Do these details give any more credibility to the Venom Spider-Man story? And if true, do you think it would be a good idea?" All right, thanks a lot for that, Terrence. Now, just for those of you who are just wondering what he's talking about, there are you've probably seen some headlines going around right now that Sony wants very much to get Venom, played by Tom Hardy, in the next MCU Spider-Man film. So we're seeing a lot of headlines. I always tell you guys, don't just read the headlines, read it and find out where it's the source. Where's this coming from? Where this information is coming from is from this mystery Twitter account that nobody knows who's running it. And it's got the name Wardell on it. I think it's Ron Wardell or something like that. There's no picture associated with it. It's just this random Twitter thing. Why is anybody paying attention to some random Twitter account, some anonymous random Twitter account? Well, because as they mentioned in the message, they've predicted some MCU stuff before. Let's travel back now. Let's jump in our magic Tony Stark time machine and go back to December of 2018, when this mystery Twitter account, Roger Wardell, put out several tweets about this upcoming Avengers Endgame movie. Brock Romolo and Jack Rollins return in Avengers 4 in a recreation-style scene of the famous elevator scene in Winter Soldier, but there's a major difference in this one. Oh, that was kind of right on the money. We know he nailed that. Another one he put out. Robert Redford is another returning face to Avengers 4. He will share scenes with Tony Stark and everybody's favorite trickster, Loki. Scott Lang is also there and in typical fashion really messes up big time. Well, kind of got that one. They were remember, this is all the way back in December, but there were more. In Ragnarok, Thor lost a lot of things, but what else he loses in Avengers 4 is unexpected. He loses his figure. Expect him to look a bit more like his old friend Volstagg. Again, kind of nailed that one. And then one more I'll throw in here. Robert Redford. Oh, we already did the Robert Redford one, so there's that one too. So that's the mystery kind of account that all this has been coming from. So with that in mind, this is the newest one that this Twitter account has put out. The Roger Wardell Twitter account put out, there are no plans to add Deadpool to an MCU Spider-Man 3. Remember, there were those rumors going around. We kind of shot them down yesterday that Deadpool was going to be in Spider-Man 3. Anyway, there are no plans to add Deadpool to an MCU Spider-Man 3. But Sony desperately wants Tom Hardy's Venom in this movie. Deadpool had his own movies, but never showed up in the main X-Men films. It will be the same for the MCU. So we're never going to see Deadpool show up in the MCU, but that's what we've been saying all along anyway. Rob, I think it's fair to say, on the scale of reliability, anonymous Twitter accounts are not very high on the scale of reliability. However, there is a track record of this particular Twitter account putting out some deadly accurate stuff about things coming out. So it'd make you kind of want to look at it a little bit. I still have two bits of apprehension about it, though. Number one, all those accurate predictions tell us was this is some kid who somehow, some way got to see the movie. It doesn't necessarily tell me that this is a Disney insider. It doesn't necessarily tell me this is somebody who's close to Marvel. It doesn't necessarily tell me any of that. All it tells me for sure is that, well, this kid saw the movie and then got on Twitter kind of like an ass and spoiled a whole bunch of things, although nobody at the time knew they were spoilers. It was some anonymous Twitter thing putting out garbage, whatever. Nobody paid attention to it. Paying attention now. But just because it could just be some kid who saw the movie doesn't mean they actually have an inside ear to what's going on in Marvel. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. So that's one thing. The second thing is this. Sony wanting Venom in the MCU, that's a no-brainer. Of course they do. Because that would be nothing but good for the Sonyverse at all. The question is not whether Sony wants Venom in the Spider-Man movies. The question is, does Marvel want another universe's Venom character in their MCU? That's the only question that really matters. And I think the answer to that is a resounding no. So even if this mysterious Twitter account is accurate, to me it's a, yeah, well, I could have told you that. Of course Sony wants Venom in it, but that's not the issue. The issue is, does Marvel want Venom in there? And I don't think they do, and that kind of ends the discussion. Anyway, Rob, you see these tweets from this mysterious anonymous source who has been oddly accurate about things like this. A story like this, number one, do you think there's some validity to this? Do you think this is a source we should be paying attention to? But then more importantly, do you think there's a possibility we could see Venom, actually played by Tom Hardy, crossing over into the MCU at some point?
Well, first of all, I think this source is absolutely somebody that you should pay attention to, because it's clearly they're working, at Marvel. They're working on these films in some capacity because of the specificity that's involved, whether they work in post-production or not. Maybe they work in marketing. But then I would say, why are you bothering to do this? It's clearly he's trying to create himself or herself as some kind of industry insider or whatever. That's fine. But I'm like, you're out there spoiling things, and which means that your reason for doing it is suspect. It's self-serving, and I don't like it. But I do think that the information's probably pretty accurate about where they're coming from. Why wouldn't Sony want Spider-Man in their Venom movies? I completely believe that. I thought the point he made about Deadpool not being in the regular X-Men proper films, but there hasn't been a lot of X-Men proper films for him to be in, but it was a good point to make. And I think this person obviously knows their stuff. So I believe in this person. I don't necessarily like what they're doing. As a matter of fact, I really don't like what they're doing.
Are you Roger Wardell?
I am not Roger Wardell.
Are you sure?
I am not Roger Wardell.
All right, I'll tell.
But I do think, I think they should keep these things separate unless there's a really good reason, because the Venom movie is a little goofy. And I don't know if, to me, it makes it more along the lines of, I like the first Amazing Spider-Man, but Amazing Spider-Man 2 went the goofy meter went too far. And I don't want to see what they've done with the MCU Spider-Man and catapulted into Goofy Land. I like where they've put Tom Holland. I like that Spider-Man. I don't need to see Venom in the movie.
All right. Well, as always, guys, bottom line is, what do you guys think? Do you think this is a source we should be paying attention to? And ultimately, and this leads us to today's question of the day, our question of the day for you guys is this: given the stories that are out there, do you think that Venom is going to pop up in a third Spider-Man MCU film? Do you think Venom is going to pop up in a third Spider-Man MCU film? Here's what I want you to do. Go over to my Twitter account, which is simply @JohnCampea. You can see the address there. It's going to be the very top post. Today's question of the day: do you think, given all the stories that are out there, that Venom will pop up in a Spider-Man 3 film in the MCU? Simply say, yes, I think he is going to pop up, or no, I won't. And we're going to come back and visit the results of that just a little bit later in the show.